for men who hanker only after money would be unopposed. Such miscreants would attack and the world would perish. Whoa, very interesting verse. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Because the scientific division of four varnas and four ashramas is now being extinguished, the entire world is being governed by unwanted men who have no training in religion, politics, or social order. And it is in a very deplorable condition. In the institution of four varnas and four ashramas, there are regular training principles for the different classes of men, just as in the modern age, there is a necessity for engineers, medical practitioners, and electricians, and they are properly trained in different scientific institutions. Similarly, in former times, the higher social orders, namely the intelligent class, the Brahmanas, and the ruling class, the Kshatriyas, and the mercantile class, the Vaishyas, were properly trained. Bhagavad Gita described the duties of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. Bhagavad Gita describes the duties of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. When there is no such training, one simply claims that because he is born in a Brahmana or Kshatriya family, he is therefore a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a Sudra. Such undue claims as being a higher class man. Such undue claims to being a higher class man make the system of scientific social orders into a caste system, completely degrading the original system. Thus, society is now in chaos, and there is neither peace nor prosperity. It is clearly stated herein that unless there is the vigilance of a strong king, impious, unqualified men will claim a certain status in society, and that will make the social order perish. So this is Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 55. Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 55. And it says, if you gave up all thought of the world's situation, unrighteousness would flourish, for men who hanker only after money would be unopposed. Such miscreants would attack, and the world would perish. Okay, so this is a very interesting verse. This explains more or less what's happening today. And let me see here. Yeah, we're talking about Swayambhuva Manu and his wife. Okay, so and purport, let me read it again. It says, again, Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 55. Because the scientific division of four varnas and four ashrams is now being extinguished, the entire world is being governed by unwanted men who have no training in religion, politics, or social order. And it is in a very deplorable condition. In the institution of four varnas and four ashramas, there are regular training principles for different classes of men. Just as in the modern age, there is there is a necessity for engineers, medical practitioners, and electricians, and they are properly trained in different scientific institutions. Similarly, in former times, the higher social orders, namely the intelligent class, the Brahmanas, the ruling class, the Kshatriyas, and the mercantile class, the Vaishyas, were properly trained. Bhagavad Gita describes the duties of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Sudras. When there is no such training, one simply claims that because he is born in a Brahmana or Kshatriya family, he is therefore a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a Sudra. Such undue claims to being a higher class man, make the system of scientific social orders into a caste system, completely degrading the original system. Thus, society is now in chaos, and there is neither peace nor prosperity. It is clearly stated herein that unless there is the vigilance of a strong king, impious, unqualified men will claim a certain status in society, and that will make the social order perish. Okay, so, uh, well, there is training in colleges, high school, colleges, but it's how to be a Sudra, not necessarily a Brahmana or Kshatriya. Uh, so, uh, when there is no such training, one simply claims that because he is born in a Brahmana or Kshatriya family, he is therefore a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a Sudra. Now, this is a uh, normal phenomenon now. Uh, uh, for example, a child is born in a Brahmana family, and as the child grows up, it's clear that the child is definitely not a Brahmana. But yet, because he was born in a Brahmana family, he claims he's a Brahmana. He has Brahmin thread around his neck, so forth. Uh, but for a few paisa in India, you can buy thread and put it around your neck and claim you're a Brahmana, but that doesn't make someone a Brahmana. So, uh, and then Prabhupada says here, when there's no such training, one simply claims that because he's born in a Brahmana or Kshatriya family, he is therefore a Brahmana or Kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a Sudra. So, what are the duties of a Sudra? Well, first of all, if you work for someone, let's say you have a job and you're working for someone, even though you're born in a Brahmana family, you are not a Brahmana. Brahmanas never work for someone, they're independent. And uh, mm, the whole idea of a Brahmana is someone who has a vow of poverty and is engaged in uh, studying Vedic knowledge and teaching Vedic knowledge to others. That's the life of a Brahmana. And even though the Brahmana may receive large amounts of donations, he, traditionally would give away most of that money and live very frugally, very simply, not becoming extravagant in his lifestyle. So therefore, there are very few real brahmanas today. They claim to be brahmanas, but there are very few that are actually living like brahmanas. That's why Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita describes the duties of the brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, and sudras. When there is no such training, one simply claims that because he is born in a brahmana or kshatriya family, he is therefore a brahmana or a kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a sudra. So there are many sons of brahmanas in India who are going to, colleges and being trained to be sudras in the colleges. So what is a sudra? A sudra is someone who uh, may be educated, but after their education is finished, they go around and beg to get a job. That means they're not a brahmana, they're a sudra, because they're begging to get a job. They go to all these job interviews, and they end up working for someone. So brahmanas normally never worked for anyone. They always were independent. Why? Because if you work for someone, you often cannot tell the truth. Otherwise, you could get fired. Right? So therefore, real brahmanas, they don't work for anybody. They're completely independent. And they have more or less uh, a desire to be, uh, let's say, poor or not opulent. Why? Because they usually, although they receive often large amounts of dakshina for their teaching, they distribute it mostly to other people, and they live very simply. In this way, they are not contaminated by by getting puffed up due to extravagant lifestyle. In other words, a brahmana who has gold necklaces and chains and very expensive cars, not really a brahmana. Uh, Brahmanas are they do have a vow of poverty, so that they're not controlled by anyone. So sometimes rich people, they want to support a brahmana and give the brahmana a house or to live in their house. And brahmanas, real brahmanas, will reject that, won't accept that. They don't want to be kept by anyone. Otherwise, they won't be able to tell the truth. So the main activity of a brahmana should be to study Vedic literature and be able to live a very simple life where he can teach others, but not be beholden or dependent on others. As soon as one becomes dependent, they can't speak uh, the truth honestly because they'll lose their job. So, therefore, real brahmanas will not work for anyone. They'll give advice, but they won't work for somebody. Uh, and that's because they would not be able to speak the truth. Okay, so uh, so Prabhupada says Bhagavad Gita describes the duties of the brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas. When there is no such training, one simply claims that because he is born in a brahmana or kshatriya family, he is therefore a brahmana or a kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a sudra. Such undue claim to being a higher caste man make the system of scientific social orders into a caste system, completely degrading the original system. So, what is a caste system as opposed to the original system? Well, a caste system is someone is born in a Brahmana family, and although they don't have the qualities of a Brahmana, they claim to be a Brahmana. That's the caste system. Whereas the real system is that even if you're born in a Sudra family, but you're trained properly, you're not a Sudra anymore. You can become a Brahmana or a Kshatriya due to proper training. Um, so the unclaimed, that what it says here, um, the undue claims to being a higher caste man make the system of scientific social orders into a caste system, completely degrading the original system. So the caste system is not based on merit or merit. It's not meritorious. You just claim to be something that you're not because you were born in a certain family. So I remember a long time ago, very very long time ago, there was the church I was going to. Uh, there was the priest, and he was a very nice man, and he had a son who he's the son of the priest, but the son was a nonsense person, you know, doing all kinds of nonsense things. So, and everyone, would give respect to the son of the priest, but actually, the son didn't deserve to be respected because it was nonsense, doing all kinds of sinful things. So just because someone is born in a certain family, that doesn't mean that they are, a brahmana. They have to actually manifest the qualities of a brahmana. And the qualities of a brahmana are explained in the Bhagavad Gita. So brahmanas, uh, they can earn a living by teaching or by, uh, uh, well, basically, do I forget that? What does it say? Yajna. What? Yeah, Patana. Yeah. What is it again? Yeah. So they can live by teaching, or you got it? There's 6 ways that they can, let's say, uh, earn a living. Right. And that means, what did it say? You got it? You have it? There are 6 ways brahmanas can, let's say, earn a living. Wow, it's hard to find. Okay, anyway, you find it, and then we'll continue. So Prabhupada says here that when there's uh, Bhagavad Gita describes the duties of the brahmanas, judges, Vaishyas, and Sudras. When there is no such training, one simply claims that because he's born in a Brahmana or Kshatriya family, he is therefore a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a Sudra. Such undue claims to being a higher caste man make the system of scientific social orders into a caste system, completely degrading the original system. So what does that mean? Caste system. Well, it means that uh, just because you're born in a family does not mean, and this just because you're born in a Brahmana family doesn't mean that you're a Brahmana. You have to show the qualities of a Brahmana. So, in other words, to be a Brahmana, it means that you're in a not a caste system, but a meritorious system. You have to deserve to be a Brahmana by proper education and proper behavior. So the caste system is you're just what you would call rubber stamped a Brahmana, but you don't have the qualities of a Brahmana. So the real system is it's meritorious. You have to be educated and act properly to be a Brahmana. You're not rubber stamped. Okay. Did you find something there? What?
So, Maharaj, in Canto,
Okay.
in Canto 11 of Srimad Bhagavatam, uh, the first summary,
Yeah.
it consists of the principal occupations of a Brahmana.
Okay.
It's teaching others and doing yajna, officiating yajna,
Yes, that's it.
then accepting gifts and giving gifts.
Yes. Yeah, those are the activities of a Brahmana.
Yeah, this important part.
Yajan Yajna. Okay. So because there's a degradation of this scientific uh, system of social orders, uh, it has degraded in this age of Kali into a caste system. People claiming they're a Brahmana because they're born in a family of Brahmana, and completely degrading the original system which was a meritorious system. Look that up, meritorious. Look up meritorious system. Okay, so
Or of an action or claim likely to succeed on the merits of the case.
yeah, it's meritorious. In other words, you have to have the qualifications uh, through education and training. You can't just declare you are something or someone. You have to actually be educated and show the symptoms uh, of a qualified person. Okay, did you find something?
Those more words.
Yes. What are they? What?
Patan Pata Dana Pratigraha. He must be a very good worshipper of the Lord, and he must induce his Yajamana, his dependent.
His what?
He must induce his Yajamana, his dependent. Brahmana is the head, and the Kshatriya, Vaishya, they are Yajamana. So they should induce, just like we are inducing.
They should be what?
Induce.
Induced.
Induced. I don't understand why that word is used. Open temple worship Krishna. This is Brahma's business. He must be a learned Brahmana. He must teach others how to become learned Brahmana Pandita. He accepts charity from others and he will distribute it by temple worship. Yeah, those are the mentioned.
Okay.
Yes.
There's 6 things.
Say one verse to
Yeah. In the Vedic, Brahmana must be well versed in the Vedic literature and he must preach also, make others also Brahmana. Patan Pata. Not that I'll become Brahmana, so there is no need of others becoming Brahmana. There will be competition. Just like in India, they have become very much afraid that I am making Europeans and Americans Brahmanas, so they are very much against me. They come to fight with me. So in Hyderabad, they came to fight. Sir, you are making Brahmanas, these Europeans and Americans. This is not good. And why not? So we had some discussion. So actually it is not that Brahmana is made by birth. Brahmana means Chaturvanya Maya System Gunakarma Vibhagasna by quality and work. Similarly, everything by quality and work. This is confirmed in Ardhmani. Yashayal Lakshanam Praktam Humso Varnabhi Yanjikam Yad Anyatrapi Drishyeta Tat Tenaiva Vinirdishet. Yad Anyatra. If the Brahmanical qualities are visible, manifest elsewhere, maybe he is Sudra, maybe he is Chandala. Tat Tenaiva Vinirdishet. So one should accept him as Brahmana. Similarly, if one is born in Brahmana family, but his qualities are like Sudra, Tat Tenaiva Vinirdishet. He should be accepted as Sudra. This is the injunction given by Narada, not an ordinary person.
So this boy went to see a genuine sadhu, and he said, "Sir, I want to be your disciple." And the sadhu said, "You have to go back home and find out, what is your gotra." So the boy goes back, talks to his mother, and it was a single the it was a single uh, uh,
Yeah.
parent, yeah. So he goes back, talks to his mother, and the mother says, "Look, I don't really know who your father is. I was not leading a good life, so I can't tell you what your gotra is." So he goes back to see the sadhu, and the sadhu said, "So what is your gotra?" He says, "I don't know." He said, "What do you mean you don't know?" He said, "My mother said that she was not leading a good life, and she doesn't exactly know who my father is." So he said, "Okay, I accept you as a disciple." He said, "What?" He said, "But I don't know my gotra." No, he said, "You are Brahmana because you told the truth." So that's the real system, right? You have the qualification of a Brahmana who is always truthful. And there are other qualifications also, but that was enough that the sadhu said, "Okay, I accept you as a disciple. You told the truth." Right? So it's not based on birth; it's based on merit. So, but today, oftentimes people claim to be brahmanas, but they're not qualified to be brahmanas. They're not educated. They're just simply were born in families of brahmanas. They can be rascals and still claim to be brahmanas. But that's not what the real system is. So when that does happen, then it becomes a caste system. So what's the difference between the real system and the caste system? The caste system is unqualified people just because they're born in certain families. They claim to be brahmanas or kshatriyas or whatever, uh, as opposed to having the merit, meaning being qualified. And so you don't like just because your father is a Supreme Court judge doesn't mean that the son is a Supreme Court judge just because he's born in that family. He has to have the training and the same qualifications uh, to be called a Supreme Court judge.
Here it is written in the seventh canto summary.
The 6 duties are given. The principal occupations for a Brahmana are worshipping the deity, teaching others how to worship, deity worship, and studying Vedic literature, teaching Vedic literature, accepting charity from others, and again giving charity to others.
Very good.
A Brahmana should make his livelihood from these 6 occupational duties.
Mhm. Very good. And where is that? With the
Canto 11th chapter summary.
It's in the purport, Maharaj.
yeah.
Yeah, summary.
Summary.
Okay. All right. So this purport today, the text 55, Canto 3, chapter 21, text 55. And Prabhupada begins by saying, because the scientific division of 4 varnas and 4 ashramas is now being extinguished, the entire world is being governed by unwanted men who have no training in religion, politics, or social order. And it is in a very deplorable condition. And that's true. Just because somebody gets votes, they become, president of the United States. That doesn't mean that they are qualified. They just simply get the votes. But they can be a very low class person, which is often the case. They have bad qualities, but yet they got the votes. So that's a problem with democracy. Prabhupada called democracy demon, yeah, demon, yeah, oxy. In other words, you you get votes, and even though you might be a demon, you because you got the votes, you become president. But you have no real qualification of being a president of a company or of a country, and therefore there's chaos now because people are already low class, and they vote a low class person to become a king or become a leader of a country. So, what determines who is actually qualified to be the leader of a country? Well, it's determined in the Vedic time by their qualities. And so if they don't eat meat, they don't gamble, they don't have illicit sex, they don't take intoxicants. Nowadays, when you win an election, everyone's, got some champagne in their hand and they're toasting and drinking the champagne or they're celebrating like that. So, Modi's a very smart guy, when he goes to these different and big programs and everybody has, champagne and they want to toast something. So he'll pick up the champagne glass and hold it in his hand, and then there's a toast. They say, well, there's a little speech, and then everybody drinks, and he goes like this, and he just puts it down again. He doesn't drink it, but he does. We'll hold it because otherwise he'd be considered as being, in other words, violating the tradition. So he doesn't violate the tradition. He does hold the glass of champagne or whatever. But once they give a little speech or anything, then everyone drinks it. He just puts it down. Right. So he's actually trying to be a genuine brahmana, you know, and not simply being rubber stamps. So rubber stamp means that you can get a person, you can buy a rubber stamp, you know, it says, I'm a Brahmana, you can stamp it on your forehead like that, you know, and everyone looks at you and it's written, you know, I am a Brahmana. But that doesn't make someone a Brahmana, you know. You have to have the qualification. So it's meritorious. And that means that you actually deserve being a Brahmana because you're acting like a Brahmana. You have the qualities of Brahmana. So therefore, Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita describes the duties of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. When there is no such training, one simply claims that because he is born in a Brahmana or Kshatriya family, he is therefore a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a Sudra. Such undue claims is to being a higher caste man make the system of scientific social orders into a caste system, completely degrading the original system. Thus, society now is in chaos, and there is neither peace nor prosperity. It is clearly stated herein that unless there is the vigilance of a strong king, impious, unqualified men will claim a certain status in society, and that will make the social order perish. Well, today, usually, uh, when someone becomes rich by different means, they're given a lot of respect, even though they might be a really low class person, like Elon Musk is a very low class person, and many others. That just because they made a lot of money, I mean that shows they have some intelligence, but uh, they're not really worthy of any let's say, respect because they're living very sinful lives. So the whole idea of uh, who is actually a successful person has been, let's say, completely, uh, you know, downtrodden or contaminated. So today, someone can be the lowest caste, lowest quality of a person, but yet they'll get respect because they made a lot of money.
Symptom of Kali Yuga is that people who are rich, irrespective of their qualities, they will be considered great.
Yes. So just because they have a lot of money doesn't mean that they are good people. Like, for example, you have many people that become presidents of a country or dictators of a country, and they're the lowest class people in the world. They have all the bad qualities, and basically they're just uh, non-qualified, unqualified to have such a position. But because they get votes or because they become a dictator with guns, they hold these positions, and it basically puts everybody in anxiety in the country because if you have a bad leader, that affects the people in the country also, and it's a bad example. Like for example, when Bill Clinton was president of the United States, and he was having illicit sex. And he went on national television and he pointed his finger like this to the camera, you know, and said, I did not have sex with that woman. And then it turns out that the mother of the girl that was having sex with him, she had uh, kept this dress that her daughter was wearing when they were, you know, when and she had sex with Bill Clinton, and it had stains of his sperm on it, right? So he 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 has the evidence that his sperm is on the dress, and she showed the dress, right? And she had it, what you would call examined by doctors or whatever, and it was validated that it was his sperm on her dress. That means that he was a liar, and he got away with it. And the way he got away with it was, uh, the Democratic Party people said, "Well, it's only sex. It's not, it's not really a big deal because it's only sex, you know." And he got away with it. He was not forced to uh, stop being the president of the United States. So this is a degradation of the whole culture when someone says, "Well, it's only sex," as if it's not a big thing. So let's not make a big thing out of it. But he was a very low class person. He still is today. So this is a problem. Uh, so when you have someone like Mr. Modi, who is a like a brahmachari, lives like a brahmachari, right? Controls his senses, goes on pilgrimages, and is uh, following as much as he can the Vedic way of a bona fide ruler. It's a very rare thing because most people in this age are low class people, and they just because they get votes, they get a high position. And like Bill Clinton, he's a very low class person. He became president of the United States. And what happened? Uh, he got caught, in having illicit sex, and everybody found out, and it affected the minds of young kids because they were talking about it all the time. It was in the news for a long, long time, and high school kids and middle school kids were hearing about it, right? So uh, that means that it's becomes part of the culture. That you can be a low class person and become president of the United States, and you're not judged on your low class behavior. You're judged on other criterion, like you get the most votes. So it's no longer a meritorious process. It's whoever has, who's dressed the nicest or who speaks the best, even though they have bad qualities, they are voted in. And this is what's happening. And because of that, there's chaos in society. And what is the chaos? People are engaging in illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, intoxication. So previously, uh, smoking marijuana was a crime. And then they decriminalized it. Having an abortion was a crime in America. They decriminalized it. And a whole bunch of things changed. And it was mostly in the 1960s that all these changes happened, where traditional, uh, you know, principles of uh, society were changed. So it was no longer really what you would call um, a crime to abort a baby, whereas previously it was a crime. You can go to jail if you aborted a baby. And so a lot of things changed in the 1960s. And yeah, that period of change, it was called, the time of sexual liberation. Look that up. Uh, so, first of all, uh, kids became, as they grew up, they became hippies. And what's a hippie? Hippie is someone doesn't bathe regularly, has really long hair, smokes marijuana, doesn't want to work, and has a lot of sex. That was a hippie.
Sexual liberation is the idea that people should be free to express their sexuality without shame, judgment, or discrimination. It's a concept that emerged in the 20th century.
What is it? It's what?
It's a concept that emerged in the 20th century
Yes.
and has been influenced by the movements like feminism, LGBTQ plus rights, and the sexual revolution of the 1960s.
Right. The sexual revolution.
Can include a variety of sexual orientation, gender identities, and relationship styles.
Yes. So some things that were considered anathema, like sinful, and you could be prosecuted for it. It became normal.
Mainstream.
Yeah, no, it became normal, and you were no longer prosecuted. You know, if you had an abortion previously, you could be prosecuted. Then they stopped that. You know, they changed the rule, and so it's a change of the culture, and it's still going on. The culture is changing and deteriorating more and more. Because once you start, let's say, permitting things that are wrong, then you get on what's called a slippery slope. You know, so because this is permitted, then something else is permitted, and something else permitted, and it just degrades. It becomes contaminated, and that's what's happening. So, like for example, what is the real symptom of a you know a person who is considered a success? Well, the concept of success has changed seriously. It's whoever has more money is successful. Whereas previously, that was not the criterion. The criterion was not that you have a lot of money. The criterion was that you were a saintly person, right? That was considered a successful person, right? And a little by little, it switched over to whoever has the most money is the most successful person. So this corrupts the minds of people, and they think that by making a lot of money and then showing the results of all that money, you know, nice cars and houses and yachts and so forth, that makes a person, you know, successful. But that's not the real criterion of success. The real criterion of success is if a person can control their mind and their senses and keep their mind and senses focused on Krishna or God. And so that right up to the moment of death, they can remember Krishna and then they go back to Godhead. That is real success. But that's not taught in the schools. That's not part of the culture today. Part of the culture is whoever has the most money and whoever is the biggest rascal, like Elon Musk. You know, he's got 9 children by 3 or 4 different women, right? And he's proud of it. And he says, "Well, I'm improving the human stock by doing this."
Yeah.
So you know, and he gets away with it. You know, but that just means he's a very low class person. He has 12. Huh? Yeah. By how many wives? Yeah. So that means he's a very low class person. Wait a minute. Uh, did he marry all 3 women? No.
He generally marries.
He welcomed 6 kids with his first wife, 3 with his ex-girlfriend, and 3 with his
Yeah, ex-girlfriend. That means he's not married.
3 with his Neuralink executive.
What?
Neuralink is
His employees.
Neuralink is his company,
His company.
Maharaj. He has another company called Neuralink.
Oh, neural link. Okay.
Neural link.
So some of the secretaries or something.
Executive. There's an executive. She's a woman.
Yeah.
With her, he had.
Yeah, that means he's a very low class person. You know. But yet, people respect him because he has a lot of money. And this is the problem. See, the criterion of a successful person has become degenerated. And it's anybody who has a lot of money is a successful person. But that's not the real criterion of success. The real criterion of success is someone who can remember Krishna at the moment of death. That means you're a really successful person. You go back to Godhead. But just because you have a lot of money, what are you going to think of at the moment of death? You're going to think of all the sex you had, and you'll see, whatever you did in your lifetime, it'll flash before your mind at the moment of death. So if it's all nonsense, then you become an animal or less than an animal in your next life. So, and that's just, of course, nobody believes that. They think that. Well, anyway, they're all trying to find a way not to die, because if they die, then they might be judged. So the prayer of the atheist is, I pray that there's nothing when I die. And that's, of course, a false idea. And they're living in this what you would call a balloon of false ideas, and they believe, they pray. I don't know who they pray to, but they pray that there's nothing after death, and different things like that. That they don't have to be judged. There's no God. There's no judgment. There's no culpability for sinful activities, and so forth. And then they say that their activities are not sinful. Like, if he has so many children without being married, well, he had 6 by being married, and then he had other, what?
3 with ex-girlfriend and 3 with
Yeah.
executive.
Yeah. So, did any of those women try and sue him? No, because he has money. He bribed them. So he might have raped them also, but he bribed them, so they're not trying to pursue him. So this is the problem of low-class people becoming rich. They degrade the morality of people in the society. And they live in this extravagancy, big cars and big houses, and then having what you would call a lecherous life. Look that word up, lecherous. That's a very good word to describe these people. They're lechers. See, all the words are there. Go ahead.
Having or showing excessive or offensive sexual desire.
Just speak louder. I can't hear you.
Having or showing excessive or offensive sexual desire.
Yeah, that's Elon Musk right there. Elon Musk and, all his proteges, people that follow his example. Yeah.
He's a hero.
Yeah. Okay. So now we go on to text 56. We still have a few minutes. So text 56 says, and it's the last verse of chapter 21. In spite of all this, I ask you, O valiant king, the purpose for which you have come here. Whatever it may be, we shall carry it out without reservation. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When a guest comes to a friend's house, it is understood that there is some special purpose. Kardama Muni could understand that such a great king as Swayambhuva, although traveling to inspect the condition of his kingdom, must have had some special purpose to come to his hermitage. Hermitage means is like his place that was living in the forest. Yeah. Thus, he prepared himself to fulfill the king's desire. Formerly, it was customary that the sages used to go to the kings, and the kings used to visit the sages in their hermitages. Each was glad to fulfill the other's purpose. This reciprocal relationship is called bhakti karya. There is a nice verse describing the Kshatriya. Kshatram dvijatvam. Kshatram means the royal order, and dvijatvam means the Brahminical order. The two were meant for mutual interest. The royal order would give protection to the Brahmanas for the cultivation of spiritual advancement in society, and the Brahmanas would give their valuable instruction to the royal order on how the state and its citizens can gradually be elevated in spiritual perfection. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 21st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Conversion Between Manu and Kardama. Okay, so the one example of a Brahmana is, what was his name? Anyway, the Brahmanas would give instruction to kings, but would not change their lifestyle. Their lifestyle would be to not associate with the kings and not accept any, dakshina and things like that from the kings. But they would give advice if the kings were willing to listen to it. So they wouldn't accept to live in the same palace as the king. They would still continue to live in their humble situation, usually in the forest, and continue to practice their tapasya. So when the pundits or the saintly people started living in the palace with the king, they became corrupted, and then also they were not able to give the truth because they might be ostracized by the king. Right? As soon as a person becomes attracted to opulence, and due to being beholden to a rich man, then they can't tell the truth. Because if they tell the truth to the rich man, they could be kicked out, and then they would lose all that opulence. So that's why a real Brahmana does not live in a palace, does not accept to live in a palace, even though the king says, "Oh, you come and stay with me." And a real Brahma refuses. Said, no, thank you. I'm happy where I am. If you need any advice, you can just ask me and I'll give it to you. But I'm not going to live in the palace and have nice clothes and all this and that, because then you're kept as like a pet. And you have to only say things that are pleasing to the king and not say anything that is completely truthful, but would be insulting to the king. Okay. So this was the problem in modern times, that in order to keep your job, you have to work for low-class people, and you have to go to their parties where they're drinking liquor and play the game of what do you call that? Um, a life of extravagancy, which actually is a life of depravity. That's a good word, depravity or depraved. It basically means, a really low class behavior. What's it say?
Moral corruption.
Moral corrupt. Yeah. That's what happens when you start associating with these very, very rich people. Even though they might have some good habits, like they might be a vegan, right? But their only interest is making money and controlling other people with the money that they have. Right? And what happens is people get corrupted, and they, it's like a magnet. A magnet can attract iron filings. In the same way, a very rich person can uh, uh, attract all kinds of people because they have the desire also to get some of that wealth that they have. So they will basically even what they call give up their principles just to get to the money. And sometimes the rich people ask them to do depraved things, and they eventually start doing that. Like all the time, you'll see these very rich men are taking advantage of young women and defiling them and using them only for their sense gratification. Although they promise them, "I'll give you this, I'll give you that," like a lot of movie stars, or a lot of young, pretty women that are trying to, become Hollywood stars. They meet all these rich, big Hollywood guys, and they promise them they'll make you a star, but they just have sex and don't really, give the person what they wanted, or sometimes they do. A lot of these big female stars have prostituted themselves in order to get that stardom and become corrupted by low class people. And one example of that is Harvey Weinstein. You look up his history. That's all he was doing. He would anytime he'd see a pretty woman, he would promise them that he'd make them a movie star or something, and just have sex, and oftentimes not do that. You know, so that's why he ended up in jail, because he defiled a lot of women. I think he's out of jail now. I'm not sure. I think he's out of jail, but he was put into jail for his very corrupt behavior with women. Okay, so if there are no questions, we'll stop there. And if there are questions, you can ask them now. So we're at the end of Canto 3, Chapter 21. Tomorrow we'll start Chapter 22.
So, Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Pradyumna Das.
Yes.
So I have a question about today's discussion, like the qualities the person is be decided whether it's a Brahmana or Kshatriya
Yeah.
or whatever based on his qualities. But does that the environment also basically deciding factor for this, like or karma, sorry, I mean the karma factor, because there are few examples in our history. For example, um, even those people have qualities of um, Kshatriya. For example, Karna is another example, and Eklavya. So Eklavya, I can understand maybe. So it has been denied from being giving the education of Kshatriya because he was from the lower caste, and at the same time, Karna is also being refused to take part in the contest, even if he was eligible candidate for, I mean, not eligible, but yeah, he was all qualities to win that contest. But so is that because of their own karmas, or how do you understand this, like some of these examples?
Well, that's a good question. You see, when a person is very humble and shows the qualities of a brahmana, they should be accepted as a brahmana, because the whole system is meritorious. By merit, you and proper behavior, you exhibit, what who you are. So, if you follow the regulative principles of spiritual life, then you're a brahmana. Just like this one boy went to a sadhu and said, "I want to be your disciple." And the sadhu told him, "What is your gotra?" He said, "I don't know." And the sadhu said, "Go and talk to your mother. Ask her what your gotra is." So he goes back to his mother, and the mother says, "Look, I don't know. I was not living a good life. I don't even know who your father is." So the boy was shocked. So he goes back to see the sadhu, and the sadhu says, "Okay, what is your gotra?" He says, "I don't know. My mother told me that she was living a bad life, and she doesn't know who my father is." So the sadhu said, "Okay, I accept you as my disciple." And the boy was surprised. He said, "Why?" He said, "You're a brahmana. You told the truth." You see? So that was the real system, right? It's not, in what family you're born. It's your behavior. If you behave like a brahmana, then you are a brahmana. And number one thing about being a brahmana is not only you can control your mind and senses, but you also tell the truth. You can't be a brahmana if you're lying and cheating and so forth. And just like today, I mean, it's unbelievable how many big mahants and big so-called saintly people in India get caught having illicit sex. It's terrible, and therefore people lose their faith in the whole system of Sanatan Dharma, because there are all these rascals that get those positions of great yogis or great, you know, spiritual people, and they have a lot of disciples, and then they find out they're very low class. So it's very, very disgusting. On the other hand, yes, Srila Prabhupada, he never did anything disgusting. He was always following strictly the rules and regulations of spiritual life. And therefore, he attracted many people because they could see he was genuine. There was this one man, very wealthy man, who associated with Prabhupada, but never took initiation from him. And he was a very rich man. So when Prabhupada left his body, this rich man who used to associate sometimes with Prabhupada, he said, "I made a big mistake." He said, "I'm a businessman. And in order to succeed in business, when you get into some kind of a business situation with someone else, you always try and find out what that person's weaknesses are, and then you try and exploit that person by knowing what their weaknesses are." He said. So when I met Prabhupada, he said, I was trying to find his weaknesses. And because of that, I didn't take initiation from him, because I was always trying to find what his weakness is. And well, after he left his body, then he realized he made a big mistake, because Prabhupada didn't have any weaknesses, right? He wasn't greedy, he wasn't lusty, and so forth. And he said that was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life. So, Yeah, I mean, you have to analyze a person you want to take initiation from, of course. But at a certain point, the analysis has to stop. But it didn't stop for him, and because of that, he didn't take initiation from Prabhupada. And he says that it was the biggest mistake I made in my life.
He took initiation from Prabhupada. Maharaj.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Leelaji Prabhu.
Yeah, exactly. That's him. Yeah. But he was, always trying to test to see if Prabhupada was bona fide or not. Well, it's got to be an end to that. You can't just keep testing, testing, testing. Yeah. Okay. So this type of doubting, being a doubting Thomas. Thomas was one of Jesus's disciples, and after Jesus was crucified and considered to have died on the cross, but yet he resurrected from the dead and spent 40 days associating with his disciples and preaching. Then he went back to so-called heaven. Well, there was one of his disciples who wanted to have physical proof that Jesus was not a fraud. So, and he's called Doubting Thomas, right? So what did he do? At one point he said to Jesus, "Look, you were pierced in your abdomen by the saber, the javelin, like of uh, uh, the the people that were torturing you. Can I put my finger in your wound to make sure you're actually Jesus? That you're not faking it." And Jesus said yes. So he sticks his finger into the wound, and he sees it's real. So he's called a doubting Thomas. uh, he had to have, the physical proof that Jesus actually resurrected from the death. Right? So, yeah, I mean, you want to validate things. But Prabhupada said once that the problem of modern, scientists and so forth, they want to have proof of everything, right? But there's some things that you can't get proof of. Like how do you have proof that there's a spiritual world? You and there's so many things that you have to accept on basis of faith. So that's the problem and Prabhupada said that's the problem of modern society. They want to have proof of everything. And can you have proof of everything? No. There's some things that you can't have proof of. I mean, how can you have proof of the existence of a spiritual world? I mean, we're talking about material proof. You can't. You have to accept it on the basis of faith. But there's putting your faith in the right thing and there's putting your faith in the wrong thing. So how do you know the difference? Well, that's why there's parampara, bona fide disciplic succession. And then usually you can have faith in what you learn in that disciplic succession because there are rules and regulations that people have to follow to become bona fide sadhus. Okay, so are there any questions? So there was a question. We did get his answer. I think so. Okay. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribo, Haribo. Yeah, by regular class, morning and evening, so many things can be discussed and so many misconceptions can be corrected. And if you feel that that's actually happening, then it's worthwhile. If you feel as if you're not actually learning anything, then then there's something wrong. So, but the basic thing is we're going page by page through the Srimad Bhagavatam, and every day there's something new. Like from today's purport and verse, uh, it says, "When a guest comes to a friend's house, it is understood that there is some special purpose. Kardama Muni could understand that such a great king as Swayambhuva, although traveling to inspect the condition of his kingdom, must have had some special purpose to come to his hermitage. Thus, he prepared himself to fulfill the king's desire. Formerly, it was customary that the sages used to go to the kings, and the kings used to visit the sages in their hermitage. Each was glad to fulfill the other's purpose. This reciprocal relationship is called bhakti karya. There is a nice verse describing the relationship of mutual beneficial interest between the Brahmana and the Kshatriya. Kshatram Dvijatvam. Kshatram means the royal order, and Dvijatvam means the Brahminical order. The two were meant for mutual interest. The royal order would give protection to the Brahmanas for the cultivation of spiritual advancement in society, and the Brahmanas would give their valuable instruction to the royal order on how the state and the citizens can gradually be elevated in spiritual perfection. So, are our leaders getting Brahminical instruction? No. They're getting Asuric instruction. Yeah. So the system is broken, unfortunately. But by becoming Krishna conscious, we're going back to the original system. We're taking instruction from bona fide authorities and not by speculators. And we're also held to a system of meritorious behavior. We have to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness to be called a devotee. Now, sometimes people make mistakes, they can be forgiven, but they can't be a genuine pattern of mistakes all the time. They have to stop. Otherwise, they're not going to be forgiven anymore. So to become spiritually inclined in Kali Yuga is not easy because most people are not spiritually inclined. That's why satsang is very important. Coming together and hearing the Vedic literature and discussing it and following it is real satsang. Right? Satsang is not, going to a 7-day, what do you call that? 7 days listening to what? Yeah, Bhagavad. Yes, that is nonsense. That's why it says that Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Right? It doesn't say 7-day Bhagavata Sevaya. So people think if they go to the 7-day lecture, then that's it. They got the juice. There's no. It's Nityam Bhagavata Seva, Haribol. So that is our takeaway from today. Nityam Bhagavata Seva. Yeah.
It's very popular, Maharaj, in India, especially the Saptah, the 7 days. It's very popular.
Yeah, of course.
Especially in the north, I can go. People do it and they feel like
they're purified. They're not purified. They go back doing exactly the same things they did before.
And most of the time, there are some professionals. They take specific amount. They have full team. They will bring their team for kirtan and
Yeah.
reading some of the verses, and they have a systematic way. Day one will complete this, and by the day second, they will do a lot of rituals.
And they'll collect a lot of money.
So they have a package.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're good businessmen. Haribol, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.